Let me tell you a little story about a guy who wanted a trailer so bad and couldn't afford one that he decided to build one. Now this guy, knowing how to weld, knowing how to work with steel, understanding the process, got started. I went around to every thrift store I could find to buy up every bed frame I could find, everywhere. Now granted, I didn't have the best trailer to start and I didn't know where to start, so I looked through Facebook and found someone giving away a RV camper, a 32-foot long camper. So I went and picked up the camper. I stripped all the parts off it, scrapped everything I could. There was a lot of aluminum, copper, precious metals, heaters, generators, you name it. Took all that, scrapped it to get the money I would need to buy the supplies that I needed to build this trailer. Now I stepped back, took a look at what I had, started cutting up the bed frames into usable steel, went to Harbor Freight, bought a welder, and I got started. Alright, standing back and looking at this trailer, I wanted to make it as wide as possible. So I started welding bed frames to the edge all the way around on the top. I needed to make sure that it would support 2x10s or 2x8 wood. So I went off those measurements, calculated where I exactly needed all my metal, and got to welding. I welded on this thing for 3 days. I went through 4 3-pound spools of welding wire. Now, as you're watching this video, if you're a welder or a steel worker, I think you might see the mistake I made. And I hate to admit it, but this was a big mistake. And it would, in the end, cost me the trailer. But I wasn't going to be deterred and I wasn't going to be stopped. I was going to build a trailer. Now, I've been welding all my life, so I've got about 30 years experience in welding, so I know what I'm doing. And a trailer needs 4 things. It needs a hitch, it needs a deck, it needs fenders, and it needs lights. So at this point, I got to wiring the trailer because I wanted to wire it before I put the deck on it, which I should have waited till after I painted it to wire it, but hey, we live and we learn. Now, building fenders on a trailer where fenders don't exist is not easy. So I looked at the suspension, how far it would travel, and I figured it wouldn't go more than 2 inches. So we started putting a 2x8 across the top of the tires, and I started building just a skeleton that I could skin, body shop style of rust replacement panels, which I've done all my life. I use that kind of mentality in building the fenders. They're kind of unibody. Each piece of metal depends on the piece of metal next to it to support it. They ended up being pretty strong, but they were quite a challenge for me to build. And then we just took straight body metal and covered them. And I gotta say, when they were done, I was impressed with these fenders. I really was. I don't think I could have built them any better if I designed them everything, but I built it freehand while I was working on the trailer. Okay, my buddy came over for a couple of days, so I didn't have help for a long time. So we just started building. This whole trailer was built and painted in 2 days. We worked really hard on it. Reinforced the center where the water tanks used to be. We added some metal across there to make sure it'd be strong enough. Buttoned up the fenders and getting everything ready to paint. By this time, step back, look at the trailer, look at what we built, made sure we didn't miss any metal. Fenders were done. Trailer looked to be done. Ready to paint, so get at them axles. Started sanding down, cleaned up the axles the best we could, cleaned all the grime and stuff off the frame under there. I wanted to paint under the fenders black. I just didn't want to draw attention to them, so I did them that way. Okay, you might think this is funny, but I decided on the color of the paint. I looked in the garage and said, all right, what do we got? What are we going to do? How are we going to paint this? And I didn't have the paint that I wanted, so I ran down to Tractor Supply Company, and the blue that we painted on this was a single stage fence farm color. I believe it's the early 70s version of Ford Blue. I had fun making this thing blue. Everything was blue. The gravel underneath it was blue. The poles to the parking cover was blue because we couldn't move it. We had to paint it right there. It was hilarious. But it came out nice. I'm real happy with the paint job. Okay. You can have a laugh with me here. It's painted, waited a couple of days, put tires on it, hooked it up to the truck, checked the lights, everything's working. Cool. Pull the trailer around the block, everything looked good. Back it back in the spot, let's deck it. I had a stack of 2x8s and 2x12s in the backyard, so I did the top, it came out perfect, looked gorgeous. Did the bottom deck, kind of ran out of wood, so I had to build the center out of plywood in the beginning because that was all the wood I had, and I needed to get the whole deck covered with wood. We got the trailer covered, and it came out beautiful. At this point, I fell in love with this trailer. But I kind of noticed a weak point before we really hauled anything. We used it a couple of times for hauling the light loads of scrap, but I noticed it was a little weak in the front. With it being a little bit weak in the front, I was like, what are we gonna do? I had some mobile home frame, so I cut it up and added it in the archway between the upper deck and the lower deck. I used more welding wire in this little area than I did on the entire trailer. But I wanted this thing strong, and it came out strong. There was no deflection in the trailer at this point, and I thought I had built the ultimate flatbed trailer. I mean, why go buy a gooseneck when I can spend, $1,000 and build my own trailer? Ha ha ha. All right, well, I'd rather laugh than cry when minor disasters happen, so I'll tell you that story in the next video.